Welcome to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast, where you can learn and be inspired by real-world examples of how technology is transforming businesses and reshaping industries in a language everyone can understand. Here is your host, Neil C. Hughes.
Welcome back to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast, and I have a great story for you all today. Because today's guest is a great guy who's coming onto the podcast to share his incredible and inspiring story. And his name is Cian Sherwin, and he developed a company called Real Ice. And he is a recent Bangor University graduate over in Wales. And essentially, it is a wind-powered machine that pumps water from under the ice to the surface, where it freezes rapidly and patches gaps in the sea ice. And it also works to thicken the ice and give an ability to reflect the sun's energy back into space, as opposed to it being absorbed by the Earth. It is an incredible idea, and it even got the attention of Hollywood's Jessica Alba. More on that story later. I'm sure I've got you intrigued. I've got you hooked. So buckle up and hold on tight as I beam your ears all the way to Wales to learn more about Cian's inspirational story. So a massive warm welcome to the show. Can you tell the listeners a little about who you are and what you do?
My name is Cian Sherwin, and I'm Managing Director for Real Ice. And I'm also a recent graduate from Bangor University. I studied zoology with herpetology for my bachelor's, and then I went on to do a master's by research in consultancy for higher education.
And what stands out immediately for me, especially when I was doing a bit of research before you came on the podcast today, is you've been on quite a journey. So yes, I'm looking forward to learning more about Real Ice and the great work that you're doing. But can you begin by sharing your origin story and where your passion for using tech to solve real world problems came from, and ultimately what it was that put you on the path that you're on today?
When I think back to it now, I guess what put me on the path of business and consultancy, because obviously my undergraduate being zoology with herpetology was quite a contrast to consultancy. And basically what happened there in my last year, I was doing a module called Bioenterprise and Employability. And during that, there was a workshop with my now colleague and friend, Chris Walker, and he was putting on a workshop which is called Dragon's Den, which encourages students to think of business ideas. And in that case, it was particularly to do with biology, zoology, the natural world, and basically to come up with an idea that could solve an issue, or just that was a good business idea. And during this session, then I kind of found a newfound love for business and consultancy. And I pretty much went up to him at the end of the session and was like, I really want to do a master's and possibly be a consultant. I was like, can you help me? And he said, yeah, no problem. Let's have a meeting next week. And from there, then we went on to plan a master's together, along with another colleague. Then he became my supervisor, Izzy Winder. And we created a project which had never been done before, which combined biology and consultancy, and we actually consulted for the Natural Sciences Department in Bangor University as part of the project. And through that, then I got into the business world and networked with a lot of the kind of entrepreneurs and support teams that we have here in North Wales, and it's just kind of been a stepping stone, one after the other, to Real Ice, and that's kind of brought me here today.
It's a great story, and so important to hear about where it all began, I think. And of course, from there, you and your team went on to develop and concept test prototypes of re-icing machines to replenish the Arctic ice. Talk about a big gig or a big goal to go after there. But can you set the scene and tell everyone listening more about what Real Ice is, and also the problems that you're setting out to solve with it?
Sure. Well, the project itself was initially called the CQ project, and CQ meaning sea ice in Inuit. And pretty much that project had been going for, I think, nearly 6 years now. And only at the start of lockdown, there was a networking session, again hosted by Chris Walker, and in which I met the head engineer, which is Nick Penny. And together then we decided, well, it was Nick's idea that he wanted to actually take the CQ project, which is a mainly volunteer side, and bring it to the commercial side. And with that, then he needed a team of people to take up this extremely complex project. And I guess at the time I had just been made furloughed. The pandemic was hitting, everyone's at home. I thought, what better thing to do than to jump on something that can, one, really make a difference, we believe, and two, something that I'm extremely passionate about is the earth and how to protect it. And with that, then we began to kind of gather our resources, I guess, and begin to bring more and more people on to the point now we've got a 15-strong team of students, current students, some graduates, and some extremely distinguished professionals in the business world. And together then we've been working completely online through Zoom and using platforms like Miro for online work, whiteboards to work together. So I realized it is a community interest company that has developed a real icing machine that can re-ice the Arctic. Yeah, the problems we're trying to solve is climate change, rising sea temperatures, rising sea levels. Along with that, then with the melting of the ice, of course, is increasing the sea levels. And with that, then there's danger to a lot of coastal towns. That's globally reaching. But more locally is indigenous people and wildlife up in the Arctic is directly affected from these effects of climate change. And what we're doing is hopefully bringing in a solution which can mitigate the issues that are being seen locally as well as globally. The indigenous people are losing quite literally the foundations of their homes. Wildlife is losing natural trails and pathways that are needing to be repaired, and therefore they're having to change their distributions, and that's causing, as you can imagine, issues with conservation.
So the question I've got to ask, as the ex-IT guy, is always curious and likes to take a look under the hood. How does it all work? Can you tell me a little bit more about the technology that makes all this possible?
So the technology is quite simple, as we've built upon what's already used today in the form of ice pumps. Oil rigs, recreational use, all of these today will use a pump that a hole gets drilled in the ice and a pump gets put in, and it will spread water on top to help replenish ice or to create ice platforms. What we've done then is actually combine renewable energy in the form of a wind turbine and placed on top of one of these pumps so that we can power it indefinitely through renewable energy.
And one of the things that I find incredibly exciting when I was doing a bit of research on you guys is your plan to employ indigenous people of the Arctic regions to own, maintain and operate the machines, thereby combating the effects of global warming and ice loss, while also boosting economic development of the regions that have been experiencing directly the negative effects of climate change most harshly. Can you expand on that model for me? Because it just sounds so inspirational and forward thinking. And how did you get there? I mean, it's incredible what you're doing here.
So through the creation of ice, much like how if an individual had a home with a wind turbine on it, if they generated enough electricity to power the home and actually generate additional amounts of electricity, they can sell that back, and it becomes a carbon credit. What we're hoping to do is use the creation of the ice to earn carbon credits, which can then be sold and will provide additional income to the user.
So can you tell me more about how the project has caught the attention of the United Nations Development Programme and also Hollywood superstar Jessica Alba, is that right?
Yeah, so, it'd be almost 8 months ago now, Hyundai and the UNDP Accelerator Labs launched the For Tomorrow initiative. And basically, the For Tomorrow is an initiative that seeks out, welcomes and shines light on people all across the globe who are helping their communities move towards a more livable future. The platform receives submissions to their website, fortomorrow.org, has received submissions from over 30 different countries. And we were lucky enough to be part of one of them accepted submissions. And through that, then we were chosen to take part in their Earth Day short film, which featured Jessica Alba and BTS. So For Tomorrow is aiming to help grassroots innovators like ourselves advance their innovations through crowdsourcing, connecting with other innovators, and coaching from sustainability experts. So it's been extremely beneficial. It's provided us with a platform to showcase the project, and it's allowed Realise to get some major publicity all across the globe.
Now, I love your story and how it's helped put Wales on the tech map too, especially for people that are listening all over the world. I try and provide a different story every day from a different area of the world on how tech is transforming that particular part of the world. So for yourself, can you tell the listeners about the startup community and that vibrant tech scene in Wales? Because we're used to hearing these stories in Silicon Valley, but it's great to hear them from Wales too.
Yes, it's fantastic. I have to say, there's a lot of support out there in North Wales, notably from MSpark, B Enterprise, and North Wales Business Academy, Big Ideas Wales. All of these provide ample support for startups and entrepreneurs that are looking to take forward their ideas into the commercial world. Realise has and will embrace the power of collaboration through the startup community. A buzzing network of entrepreneurs and business owners has, especially in our case, allowed some truly innovative projects to come out of North Wales. Most notably, maybe honourable mention being the Scouted Hub, IntelliDigest, and the Pi language learning.
And I know it's very early days for you guys, but what is your grand vision? What excites you about the road ahead and how you're going to bring all this to life?
So our grand vision for Realise obviously is to build upon what we have at the moment, expand our fleet, and create a fleet of machines which can go up to the Arctic, do exactly what it says on the tin, and for the indigenous people who could be the individual users, and for them to really accept and support what we're trying to do. It's very important to us that we have their kind of backing and collaboration on this project. It's something that we are currently trying to do, and we are desperate to do before we proceed any further, because we want this to be a truly holistic, beneficial solution, which is not only benefiting the people, but also the environment and the wildlife that's up there.
Well, I'm going to be following your journey very closely, and it would be great to get you back on early next year and see how things are progressing. But before you go, I'm going to throw a slight curveball in your direction now, because a question I always like to ask my guests is if there was a particular song that has inspired them in their career or accompanied them throughout their career, or just helps them get their head in the zone before landing that big meeting or going on stage to deliver a keynote. Is there a song that's close to your heart that you could share and we can put on our playlist?
I think I'm going to go with The Humblin' River by Pulsifer. And the main reason for that is purely the lyrics. Maynard James Keenan is an absolute genius in my opinion, and the hidden meanings and metaphors that he uses through these songs are completely fantastic in my opinion, and extremely motivational.
Well, I'll add that to the playlist so people can listen and maybe feedback to you, and maybe you just introduce them to it there. But
I'm hoping so. That would be fantastic. I'd be delighted.
Yeah, I love that. That's what I love about recording this podcast and sending these thoughts and conversations out there. And you know that somebody somewhere, anywhere in the world, is going to open that Spotify playlist, and you've just introduced them to that without even realising it. But before I let you go, can you remind everyone listening where they can find you online and contact your team if they've got any questions?
Yes, so you can find out more about Realise at www.realise.org.uk. You can also follow us on our LinkedIn and Facebook pages at Realise. You can also follow myself if you would like to at Cian Sherwin. I'm across pretty much everything, LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Do get in touch. We are extremely happy to hear from Indigenous people in particular. So if you or someone you know is up there in the Arctic and could possibly get in contact with us, please let us know. We would love to hear from you.
Well, I'll add all those links to the show notes so people can find you nice and easily. I always say at the end of every episode that technology works best when it brings people together. But with what you're doing here and combating the effects of global warming and ice loss on traditional local communities, it doesn't get any better than that. So thank you so much for taking the time and share that story with me today.
Thanks very much for your kind words, Neil. It means a lot. Really appreciate it.
Wow, what a great guy and inspirational story there. As a university graduate at Bangor University, I'm just inspired how he took it from there and how he is now attempting to change the world with technology. And what really stood out, again, is employing indigenous people of Arctic regions to own, maintain and operate the tech. And in doing so, ultimately, he's combating the effects of global warming and ice loss, while also boosting economic development of the regions that have been experienced the negative effects of climate change most harshly. And of course, throw in Jessica Albert into the mix and you have a story you're not going to forget in a hurry. But I just love how humble and down-to-earth Cian is, and just a very special guy. So I will be following this one very closely. But over to everyone listening, if you have a similar story that you want to get on here, please email me, techblogwriter@outlook.com. You can also connect with me and message me on LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram at Neil C. Hughes. And my website is techblogwriter.co.uk. So I hope you enjoyed this one as much as I did. I'll be back again tomorrow. I've already got another guest lined up for you all. So thank you for listening. And until next time, don't be a stranger.
Thank you for listening to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast with Neil C. Hughes. Remember, technology works best when it brings people together.